Like anyone else, I started out with just a regular 9 to 5 job, right? Growing and developing within corporate America. Eventually getting into the space of Agile, Scrum, and those type of things. And just really fell in love with it, eventually leaving corporate to where now I've built my own organization in that same vertical. What made me really and truly enjoy it is that traditionally I had been a project manager before, right? Working in a waterfall environment. And when I got a taste of being a Scrum Master and being in that agile space, it was something that I fell in love with because it allowed me to do pretty much the project manager job just without a lot of the documentation on the back end of it. And that's partly why I fell in love with it. Plus I like the opportunity to deliver a portion of the product to our customer ahead of schedule.
What do you believe kind of separates you from, say, other consultants and trainers in this space? What makes you so unique?
What makes me unique is that not only have I done some of these jobs, but I understand fundamentally what it takes in order for an individual to grow and develop.
What are some of the common threads that, because one of the things, and correct me, one of the things that you do is you also train leadership or leaders for leadership roles, correct?
Correct.
What are some of the common threads across those leadership roles that you've held?
Across the board, I've held a variety of different leadership titles. I've led teams, I've led low performing teams, I've been given low performing teams intentionally. But as a leader, if you go in and you're really and truly doing the job the right way, people find you. And what I mean by that is that because of my leadership style, the way in which I manage, I had people from other teams and other departments reaching out to me for assistance. I had peers as well as people that were above me reaching out for a level of assistance. So early in my career, that showed me that I had the ability to train people that were below me, people that were on my level, as well as people above.
You said that you've been given low performing teams, high performing teams, and I guess some type of teams or leadership positions kind of like in the middle. Mm-hmm. Is there maybe one or two specific experiences that have kind of, that you can provide us with how it all turned out, or what the results were? You mentioned low performing teams and you kind of laughed about it. And
I laugh about it because I was purposely given a low performing team from a guy that I used to work with. We worked at this company together. We got laid off. He ended up going to a different company and wanted me to come over. And he was adamant about me coming over. And I should have known then. That was the first sign. But once I got there, he gave me the lowest performing team in the department. Now, mind you, I had transitioned from one industry to a new industry for me. Mm. And I had a low performing team. And
the position you were at previously was a low performing team?
The new team
was a low performing
that I gained was a low performing team in a totally different industry. So I'm already behind the 8 ball when I take this job. But what I did rely upon were metrics and numbers, because regardless of what industry you're in, metrics and numbers just don't lie as it relates to performance. And so that's where I started to have conversations. And I'll admit I had probably about 3 people transfer out. Mm-hmm. But the remaining portion of the team ended up staying, and we ended up being the top team in just a few months. And that was basically honing in on what their metrics were, the percentage that they were hitting as it relates to the metrics, and the number of accounts that they weren't touching at all. But I don't just tell you what the problem is, always come in with a solution. So even though they had over 400 or 500 accounts per person that they had to contact and work with, I implemented a new strategy in order for them to reach every customer within that portfolio within a certain time period. And by doing so, that put us at the top of the list as it relates to performance pretty quickly.
We have seen a lot of your videos across the internet where you speak about Agile and Scrum and so forth. And there appears to be a real strong passion for that type of work. What is it about Scrum that puts you in a position to where you are like really into implementing it, whether you're training individuals in their personal journey as opposed to assisting corporations and how they might be able to utilize it across the within the enterprise level?
Okay. Everyone likes to see the end of the tunnel, right? And the reason why I'm drawn to Scrum as much as I am is because you're working in this smaller chunk of the smaller timeline chunk is what I want to call it. So instead of working a project that's going to take you anywhere from 6 months to 2 years to complete, now you've taken that massive project, and you've broken it down into chunks where you can actually deliver it to the customer, and that customer can make changes. As a traditional project manager, going in and having to have a change control or request more money for a project can be a very time-consuming and taxing task. But to be able to deliver the product to the customer a lot sooner and have changes made without going through the rigor of that change control, I think that's part of the reason why I'm so attracted to Scrum, because now you get a chance to see the light at the end of the tunnel in smaller chunks rather than waiting to see what it's going to look like at the very end.
Many in the professional world would probably are familiar with Scrum and Agile and all that goes with it. But for those who may not be aware of what Agile or Scrum is, can you kind of break that down? What is Agile? What is Scrum? And how do they work with each other?
Okay. So Agile is a mindset. Okay. And what happens is that it focuses on iterative development, flexibility, and customer collaboration. Whereas with Scrum, it's one of the frameworks under Agile, and it allows for teams to come in and deliver the products with complexity in an iterative process.
So it sounds like you're saying that Agile, you say, is a mindset. Mm-hmm. It's basically, and I just want to make sure I understand this. It basically takes a complex situation and makes it simple.
Yes.
Okay.
And it chops it down into smaller chunks. That's where the iterative part comes in, because it's ever evolving, it's ever changing.
And so I want to talk about this for a little bit, because for a person, and again, I'm going based upon a lot of your videos that you have out there on the internet. You have talked a lot about how Scrum could be the answer to a lot of people who are currently in a 5-figure career, who may have that aspiration to get to that 6-figure career. Mm-hmm. You've often echoed and you've championed and even yelled that the key is to get a Scrum certification. What is the process of getting that certification?
I'll speak to the CSM, which is a Certified Scrum Master, as well as the SSM, which is a Safe Scrum Master certification, because I hold both of those. So it's a 2-day process. It's back to back. It's 8 hours both days. Once you're done, you have access to take the exam. And then once you take the exam, you obtain your certification. When I did my CSM, I took 2 days off work. I went in, I went through the training. At this point, it was in person. So I went to a facility 2 days. Before I left that facility that day, I sat down because I had my laptop with me, took the exam, passed the exam. I walked out of the building certified with my CSM.
And I've heard that story before. And if you don't mind sharing, how much did you pay for that?
$2,000.
And you talked about how that was a $2,000 investment that catapulted you or put you in a position to where eventually you earned or you were able to obtain a 6-figure job. It
immediately thrust me into a 6-figure position. As soon as I received my CSM, I immediately placed it on my resume and I began to apply for Scrum Master positions and landed a Scrum Master position. I actually train the SSM. And my course is $800 for someone to go, as of today, it's $800 for you to go through the program with me for SSM.
So for the person who is considering Scrum, because I know you have like really, and I want to express this again, you've really been adamant about how you can take somebody from 5 to 6 figures in a matter of 90 days. And if I didn't know any better, I kind of look at that similar to, say, an entrepreneur, because as you're an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur, and we've all been told that no matter where you are in your entrepreneurial journey, the process of learning never stops. There's always something that you can learn that will make you better, that will make your day-to-day better with your entrepreneurial journey. And correct me if I'm wrong, it's almost as if the same thing applies with anyone who may not necessarily want to go the entrepreneurial route, but might want to actually take the steps to climb that corporate ladder. Is it safe to conclude that those that constantly continue to make that rise are likely, it's likely to the result of not necessarily just good work ethic, but they're literally feeding themselves in the process?
Correct. Because if you look at it, we all went through elementary school. It wasn't over in elementary. We had to go through middle school. Middle school wasn't an ending. You go to high school, you get this diploma at the end. Now, some people stopped there. Some people didn't stop there. Some people continued, to go on to college and master's and doctorate degrees. Some people just don't stop learning, but if you're looking to grow your professional career, you have to invest in yourself. And when you invest in yourself, that's the additional learning that you do. That's the additional certifications. Sometimes you have to set yourself apart from someone else that's going for the same particular job. Certifications will do it. Additional learning, additional education will do that.
So what type of professionals do you typically train for Scrum Masters? I mean, is it only for a specific industry or vertical? Mm-hmm. Is it something that can be utilized regardless of what the industry is? Talk about that.
It's not industry specific, because I've worked as a Scrum Master previously with an airline company on the mortgage side, the finance side. I mean, it's not industry specific. And as it relates to individuals, it doesn't matter what level you're on. The fundamentals of being able to teach and train goes for everyone.
So let's just say you've got someone who's never worked in Agile before, which according to you is kind of like under the umbrella for Scrum, right? Or Scrum is under the Agile umbrella. How do you train someone for that if they have no experience?
It's a matter of training someone to do it's the same as if you train someone to do a job. It's the same process. The terms are different. The ways of working may be different. But what you're doing, you're really and truly training someone how to do the job. When you look at the Agile Career Academy and you get your certification and you pass the exam, now we're taking you through what it is to be a Scrum Master day in and day out. From the various ceremonies that you are responsible for holding to how you're working during PI or program increment planning, all of that we teach and we train. That way, when you walk in the door and you're a Scrum Master and you just received this position and you're 6 figures, now you know how to do the job. You're in the door and you remain in the door because now you know how to do the position.
When you look at some of the comments or DMs or even questions that you've gotten, you frequently get people who talk about how they've managed to obtain certifications, but for whatever reason, they still can't perform the job. Yeah. Now, obviously, that could be the result of a number of things. But what what you would think? Let me ask, what do you see are common gaps when people? Is it the result of them simply not knowing what to do next once they've gotten a certification? They're taking the wrong steps, or is it that it's the environment that they're in and the environment doesn't? How do you say to someone who's taken all the steps, they've taken those 2 days, they've got their certification, but for whatever reason, it's not working for them?
I can do that in one word.
What's that?
Application.
Application.
Application. Because you've learned it, now you have to apply it. And if you can't take what you've learned and apply it, that's where that gap emerges. If you've learned the material and you can't explain it in the interview, that's where the gap occurs. It's the application of it. You have to be able to convert what you've learned into the actual job. That's why the Agile Career Academy is so heavily focused on the simulations and being able to show you the activities that transpire from a Scrum Master day in and day out. That way, when you're going through the interview, you have no problem. That way, when you're on the job, you have no problem.
So it sounds like even though someone gets that certification, there still is that learning curve that you make them aware of through your academy that says, okay, you've done the hard part, but there's still that next step of making sure that now that you've got the certification that you are quote unquote agile enough to where you can apply it to fit whatever particular career or industry or vertical that you're currently working in. Is that correct?
Now, because you have some that will be able to pass the certification and actually be able to do the job just because, but that's that learning style of that individual, right? That's that individual who can read it and apply it, right? But then you still have categories of people who've read it but need hands-on in order to be able to do the job.
I've heard you frequently talk about the term safe. And I think in the industry it's like what, capital S, capital A, capital F, and then E.
Lowercase e.
Safe. Okay. What is that? What is safe?
It's more enterprise-wide when you're running projects, right? So as a safe Scrum Master, you're working with the entire organization. And when I say entire organization, they break you down into what is called an art, right? And you're working underneath this art. And it's an agile release train is what it is. And some companies actually focus on just one product. We're going to work on this product over and over again. We're going to enhance it. We're going to make it better. And that's where you work. But you're working with multiple teams. You may be working with 5, 6, maybe even 10 teams. I've been in rooms and managed an art of over 200 people, right? So you have to be able to understand, how do I even fit as a Scrum Master, as a safe Scrum Master in this under this umbrella, in this space? That's what the Agile Career Academy teaches you.
Okay. So let's talk about your style of training. What does your training style actually look like?
My training style is individual focused. And what I mean by that is that I get an understanding of where that person is currently, where they're trying to go, and then I fill in the gap on providing instructions on how they get where they need to be.
And how do you measure the results of your training? I mean, how do you know if it's actually working? Are there any metrics, or, I mean, how do you determine if what you're training is actually effective?
If that individual is able to obtain what we discussed as to where he or she wanted to be, or the position that they wanted to obtain, if they get that position, then that shows me that I'm successful.
What are some of the results that you've seen from people that you've actually trained? Any examples?
I've seen people go from a customer service manager where they're on the back end doing work to a Scrum Master. I've seen people that are auditors go into Scrum Master. Even before Scrum Masters and teaching and training people to be Scrum Masters, I've had people who were on my teams before, and I've trained them to be something different, whether that's a position inside the organization or outside the organization.
So we talked about how you, going back to your academy, and because I just want to make sure that we're clear on this. Because there are those instances where you've literally either seen the comments or people have emailed you saying how they've gotten their certification and it doesn't really appear to be working for them, which could be due to a plethora of situations. Could be them, could be the environment they're working and so forth. With your academy, is it safe to say that by the time they complete it, that they would truly be what you would call
Ready.
job ready for a Scrum Master?
Job ready. Job ready. They also have access to a community, even once they obtain their certification and once they're through with the academy. You have access to a community where now when you're in a meeting or something's going on at work and you're not sure how to perform the task that they're asking you, now you have a community that you can go back to and say, hey guys, this is happening. Someone's going to be in that community to be able to answer that question for you so that you can go back to work and get the job done the way in which it needs to be.
What would you say is your most favorite success story of all the people, clients, or students that you've worked with? What would you say is your most favorite success story?
My favorite one now is one that took place last year. I had a chance to run into a person that I coached before, and we were sitting there just having casual conversation, and of course it went into a coaching session. Probably spent maybe about 30 minutes to an hour talking to him. The place that he worked wanted him to move into a different level of leadership, and he said he wasn't ready. So of course I started going into the coach Dionne part, right? And I'm talking to him. I promise you, this guy and I talked again less than 2 months later, and he had gotten promoted. So that's my favorite one.
So why do you believe workforce readiness is a critical issue right now?
It's a critical issue because when you can't explain how to do a job, or you don't have all the necessary skills outlined the way in which it should be on your resume, you miss an opportunity. So when you take an individual and you teach them how to do the job, you update their resume to reflect the job that they're going toward, and then polish them from an interview perspective, then they're ready. We don't see a lot of that in the workforce with leaders training people to move forward.
So what does the future of Agile look like in corporate America right now?
Agile is going to remain. AI, I do not believe is going to take it over. I do believe that AI will hold hands with Agile as we progress forward. For anyone looking to get into this space, my recommendation would be to polish up and obtain some AI certifications as well.
What skills will Scrum Masters and Agile leaders need in the next 3 to 5 years?
In the next 3 to 5 years, both leaders and Scrum Masters are going to need to be able to hold hands with AI in order to finish up performing. Well, I don't want to say to perform the job, because I do not believe, based upon leadership in Scrum Masters, that AI will completely take them over. I do believe that AI will further enhance what they do. If AI comes in to take a component of it, it's not going to take the entire job force away as it relates to leadership and as it relates to Scrum Masters.